These days it seems like there are more affordable custom keyboard kits than ever, but not all of them combine all-metal construction and tri-mode connectivity for $139, and also offer a pre-built option for $179. This is the Lumen Key 65, and we're going to see if the budget price means budget performance. Before we dive in, I want to mention that this video is not sponsored, and I purchased the Lumen Key 65 myself because I wanted it. I will include a couple of links in the description, which might include affiliate links if the Lumen Key 65 is available anywhere that I am an affiliate, but I'll label the links so that you know. I only have one other custom 65% right now, and that is the Mode Envoy, which cost quite a bit more than $179, but it was still actually on the affordable end of the spectrum of custom mechanical keyboards. Now, I got the pre-built version this time because I wanted to check out the quality of the Gateron Silva linear switches and the keycaps, considering the price is only $40 higher for the pre-built version, which is not that much to pay for a set of switches and keycaps depending on, which ones you're going to buy. Let's start with our usual rundown of features and specs, and then we'll talk pros and cons. The Lumen Key 65 is a 65% keyboard that can be assembled in both an ANSI and an ISO layout. It is available in a bare-bones kit or fully assembled. Color options include anodized black, silver, and red, and an E-coated creamy white. The construction is CNC aluminum for the top frame and bottom case. The case weight is copper, and the dimensions are 311.25 by 107.2 by 17.28 millimeters, and the weight is 1,285 grams for the fully assembled version. The typing angle is 8 degrees, and there are no adjustable feet, which is common for a custom keyboard. Connectivity includes Bluetooth for 3 devices, 2.4 GHz with 1000 Hz polling, and USB-C wired, also with 1000 Hz polling. There is a low latency mode accessed with a key command, which reduces input delay. The internals include a silicone button gasket mount design, hot swap PCB compatible with 3 or 5 pin switches, and polycarbonate plate. There are also aluminum and FR4 plates available. There is a switch pad as well as Poron foam between the PCB and plate, another layer of Poron foam under the PCB, and a thin sheet in the case bottom. There are 2 battery cells, which are 2280 mAh each, or a total capacity of 4560 mAh. Lumen Key does not state an estimated use time on their site. Included stabilizers are Gateron plate mount, but the PCB does support PCB-mounted stabilizers with the FR4 and aluminum plates. The fully assembled version includes Gateron Silva linear switches and Cherry Profile PBT die sub keycaps. The Lumen Key 65 includes QMK firmware and can be configured with VIA. It also comes pre-programmed with Windows and Mac modes and key commands for controlling the connection modes. There is no full backlighting, however there are a few individual LEDs that serve as indicators for the various connections and a small LED accent light. The Lumen Key 65 is available directly from Lumen Key's website and a couple other online retailers for $139 US for the bare-bones kit and $179 US for the fully assembled version. All right, now let's get into some pros and cons for the Lumen Key 65, starting with the pros. First up, let's talk construction. With a price starting at $139 for the bare bones version, you might expect construction quality to be lower than kits costing $200 or more. Now, I personally would say it's better than expected for the price. Now, the aluminum of the top frame, I think, is just a little bit thinner than aluminum I've seen on more expensive kits, but I would personally kind of expect that here, and it does not by any means feel cheap. It does not feel like it is low quality metal, and it doesn't also look like the machining is low quality. You've got nice, smooth edges around everything. Nothing seems rough or low quality as far as the aluminum of the case. The case bottom and the weight are very solid. They feel more dense than the top frame for sure. The weight also I think is a nice touch here. And it feels pretty weighty. It feels, kind of like what you would expect from an all metal kit. Another pro would be the tri-mode connectivity. It's great to have that, and it worked well for me. The pre-programmed key commands worked for me without any issues as far as switching between them. You use your function key, which for the Lumen Key 65 is not down next to your spacebar like it is on some keyboards. It's over here in your nav column to the right. It is right up here above your right arrow key, and use that in combination with the tab key to switch between your different wireless connections. The wireless connections all worked fine for me. I tested out the 2.4 gigahertz and the Bluetooth with both Windows and Mac computers. They both worked fine for me at reasonable distances. I should note that there is actually a lower latency mode that you can put the keyboard in, which I did. When I did not have it in low latency mode, the 2.4 gigahertz was just a little bit laggy. Like I did notice the individual key entries were lagging behind my input just a little bit, and that annoyed me a little. But once I put it into that higher performance, lower latency mode with a simple key command, it was keeping pace just like any other keyboard I've ever used over 2.4 gigahertz. So I do recommend using that mode if you get the Lumen Key 65. I also like that it had pre-programmed Mac and Windows layouts here. Sometimes with custom kits that don't have physical switches and they are QMK firmware, you actually really just have to program the layers yourself and then set up, whatever shortcut you want for toggling between them. But they're pre-programmed here for Mac and Windows. I'm assuming that's the same for the bare bones version kit versus the pre-built, and it worked perfectly for me. Now, speaking of the pre-built version, which I did buy here, these switches, I have to say I really like these switches, these Silva switches that are made by Gateron. They are what I would call kind of a medium weight, but they are nice and smooth. I like the sound that they produce. I'm really happy with this switch. I'm very pleasantly surprised at how nice these switches actually are. I don't have any issues with any kind of pingy sounds, no spring ping at all. They all feel relatively smooth, like the factory lube on them is nice and consistent. Overall, I really like these. The keycaps, they're good. I'm satisfied with them. They're not the best keycaps ever in terms of the crispness of the Legends. They are die subs, so they're usually not quite as crisp as a double shot keycap. But, when you look closely in person, you'll notice, especially on these, on the number row, the edges are a tiny bit fuzzy. There's nothing wrong with these keycaps other than the Legends being just a little less crisp than I would like. Now, I also think the internals here are all good choices. I have one caveat about stabilizers, but we'll get to that in a moment. We've got a polycarbonate plate, and they have FR4 and aluminum plates that you can buy separately. You've got plenty of foam in there, so you can get the sound you like either by leaving it all in or removing some or all of it. And you've got button-style silicone gasket mounting. Now, this type of mount doesn't yield the most flexible or bouncy typing feel, but it does move a little bit more with the case bottom foam removed so that the whole assembly has some more room, and it has what I would call a cushioned feel. It's not super bouncy, and there's no flex cuts in the PCB to add flex, which some people really don't like and some people like, so it's all very subjective. But don't expect this to be super bouncy even if you take out the foam, but it does feel nice and cushioned. So overall, I feel like it's a good balance. Another pro here for me is the sound profile. Now, of course, when you buy the bare bones and put in your own switches and keycaps, that's going to totally change what you hear. But as far as the pre-built model goes, out of the box, really like the sound profile here. I mean, in general, it's very marbly, and I find it quite satisfying, but importantly, there's no objectively bad sounds here. There's no metallic resonance. There's not like a reason to do mods to fix something here. And lastly, have to appreciate that they offer both an ANSI and an ISO layout. Having an ISO layout means more people around the world can enjoy it. All right, I have one kind of a neutral thing to talk about here, and that is the battery life. Now, I don't know what the expected battery life of the Lumen Key 65 is because I couldn't find it anywhere on Lumen Key's website, so I don't really know what to expect there. I'm putting it in the neutral category because I didn't have an issue with it. I tested this for about a week and used it over 2.4 gigahertz and Bluetooth for about 5 days in a row. Didn't run out of battery. I wouldn't expect to in only 5 days. And you don't have backlighting with the Lumen Key 65. You just got the accent LED here, which is not totally uncommon for custom mechanical keyboards. Not all of them have, full backlighting. So you don't have that drawing battery life away. So the battery life might be pretty decent, but I just can't comment on exactly how long it's going to last. All right, now let's talk about a few cons here for the Lumen Key 65. Most of what I have for you here in the cons is kind of nitpicky stuff or things that not everybody will really care about. There is something that annoys me a little bit about these stabilizers. So the Lumen Key 65 comes with plate-mounted stabilizers, and I don't have a problem with the stabilizers that are in here. There really is not rattle. I'm actually very happy with the stabilizers that are here, so I should really say that part of this in the pros section. But when it comes to PCB mounted screw-in stabilizers, there is support for them here. And again, this is sounding like a pro, right? However, there's an annoyance here, and that is that the polycarbonate plate that comes with the 65 is not compatible with plate-mounted stabilizers. According to LumenKey's website, only the optional FR4 and aluminum plates are compatible with PCB-mounted stabilizers. This really is just kind of a minor nitpicky thing, but if you were planning on going with PCB-mount stabilizers at some point, just keep that in mind. All right, now a con that maybe applies to some more people, and it has to do with the power switch. There is a physical switch here for you to go between just having the wired connection only to being able to use any of the connections using the battery power, but that switch is located under the right shift key. You actually have to pop the right shift key off, and then way down in this cavity here, below the plate, below the foam, down on the PCB, there is a teeny tiny little switch that not just anything can reach. You absolutely cannot reach that with your finger. You can't reach it with a fatter screwdriver. It has to be a very narrow thing. Even this thickness, this is my switch puller. Even this is not thin enough to reach down in there to change that. Now, given how annoyed I sound, I should point out it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal, because even when it's in the on position, you can still use the wired connection. You have an option with your function tab. One of those options is still the wired connection. So you don't have to turn it back to the off position just to use the wired connection. So that's good. All right, now another small con here, and one that you can do something about yourself with a little modification, and that is some light bleed from this accent LED up here. There really isn't good shielding here around the case, between the case and your backspace key up here. So what you'll have when this is connected and powered on with your computer, it doesn't have to be on, it just has to be at least in wired connection mode and receiving power for the LED to turn on. You'll get a significant amount of light bleed here, and you'll see it even from this angle. You'll just see it around your backspace key, and it's really noticeable if you're looking straight down on it. That's just a little design flaw, I think, but it is one that you can try to do something about, even with just a little bit of black electrical tape potentially. So you can do something about it, but that's just a minor little design flaw I wanted to point out. One other con that applies to Mac users: with the pre-programmed Mac layer that's here, the key command to put it into Mac or Windows mode is Function and P. So you hit Function P and that'll swap between your Mac and Windows modes. Windows mode doesn't do anything as far as the indicator lights that are under some of your keys. You don't have full RGB like I said earlier, but some of the keys have an LED under them that is just to indicate something, like when you're selecting your wireless connection modes. And there's also a difference with Mac mode, and that is when you do your Function P to go into Mac mode, the 0 key has a red LED under it that stays on. It doesn't go off. At first I thought it was just gonna flash to tell me it changed to Mac mode, but it just stays on in Mac mode and doesn't turn off. So having one random red LED on there got pretty annoying. Now, because this has QMK firmware, I absolutely could program my own separate key command to toggle between the layers. So there's absolutely a way around it. It's annoying to me to have to go in and reprogram a different way to switch layers just to not have that light turn on. So in my opinion, none of those cons are really deal breakers unless one of them really gets on your nerves, but to me, none of them are a big deal. So ultimately, with everything considered, I would recommend the LumenKey 65 if you are looking for a 65% layout, if that works for you, or if you're just looking for a customizable 65% to add to your collection, then I recommend considering the LumenKey 65, because as far as custom mechanical keyboards go, this one is much more wallet friendly than a lot of other choices. And you're really not sacrificing much here in terms of quality. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the LumenKey 65. Let me know if you picked one up for yourself and how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel. And hey, while you're here, why don't you check out one of these videos? I'm sure you'll like it. Thanks everybody. See you next time.